Last time, we left Dante and Virgil, heading down to the shores of the infamous river Styx that moats the ungodly city of Dis, the old underworld city that encloses the final circles of the Inferno. This is the fifth circle of hell, and here a second boat, with Phlegyas, the ancient Greek guardian of the river at its helm, transports our poets to the other side. Tormented souls and evil creatures await them amidst the gurgling waters, and they try to capsize the boat as it makes its way across. These are the souls of the wrathful, trapped in perpetual anger, totally unable to see the other's point of view, or to move beyond their righteousness and their absolute belief in the faults of the other side. And they forever hit and bite and scratch and fight each other above the surface of the water, whilst the slothful lie underneath like listless eels, and they cannot rise up because they were too lazy in life. Dante sees Filippo Argenti thrashing about here, the harsh Florentine politician who confiscated all his property after his exile. Now the river and the fiery walls of the dark city beyond have one sole purpose, not, as we might imagine, to keep the doomed inside, but to keep God out. The good, the true, and the beautiful have no place here. All the more remarkable, then, that Dante and Virgil have been given leave to pass through. But have they? Not without a great struggle with the powerful forces that guard the city gates, as we shall see. We move toward the city, secure in our holy cause, and beheld such a fortress, Dante explains, and on every hand I saw a great plain of woe and cruel torment. Bitter tombs were scattered with flame, made to glow all over, hotter than iron need be for any craft. And such dire laments issued forth, as come only from those who are truly wretched, suffering, and forever lost. Now the Jungian Helen Luke says the gateway to the city is of monumental significance. For here our poets must attempt to pass over from the personal unconscious into that which is collective and universal. And in order to pass through, Dante must surrender to forces greater and beyond himself. This is the point in the mythological idiom, in a rites of passage initiation, where the hero undergoes a symbolic death, in order that a new, mature version of him or herself can emerge. But it is not easy. In the ancient Sumerian myth, the descent of Inanna to the underworld, a beautiful goddess descends down a deep flight of steps, guarded at 7 points by impenetrable gates. And in order to pass through, she is required to discard an item of her royal attire. First, her crown, then her sceptre, her gown, until finally she is completely naked, divested of all her worldly trappings. Now eventually she will return with the spring, but in this moment she knows only darkness. Dante and Virgil's descent into the Inferno echoes this archetypal pattern, nowhere more arrestingly than at the gates of the city of Dis. The guardians here are the Furies, Alecto, Megara, and Tisiphone, representing anger, jealousy, and vengeance. And suddenly Dante is on his own. Even Virgil now is powerless to help him. The Furies will allow only him to pass through, and they taunt Dante, telling him to go back, that he will never get through. And for a while he believes Virgil has deserted him, betrayed him, that he is all alone. And so he is in this terrible moment. The Furies then call for Medusa, the higher guardian here, who turns men to stone at a single glance. "Let Medusa come," they cry out wildly. "Let Medusa come." And she comes in all her terrible fury, and she casts her cold eyes upon our quivering poet, frozen now in fear before her, like so many before him. But Virgil, ever faithful, is quick to protect Dante, and he shades his eyes from the Gorgon's deadly glare. Then all at once, and by the grace of God it seems, an angel appears, radiant and white and pure, amidst the fiery wastes. And straightway the guardians shrink back, and the angel opens the barred gate. Our poets hasten within, and Dante, catching his breath, realizes how very wrong he was to have ever doubted Virgil, and how utterly doomed he would be without him. His close brush with Medusa, when he felt himself perilously drawn into her deathly gaze, when Virgil had rushed to shield him, has made him realize this more than ever. Yet, in truth, neither of them is fully immune, as we have said. They are not just observers here, as we ourselves are not just observers in life, and may be pulled at any moment into the allure of darkness. There will be a moment in the 8th circle, because it becomes more and more powerful and more dangerous as they descend, when Dante will again find himself becoming mesmerized by 2 warring souls, and once more Virgil will need to step in. But for the moment they are back on track, so to speak, with trust strengthened, ready to see what must now be seen. Well, soon they come down to the realm of the heretics, and the 3 tight circles of the violent, that house the souls of those who in life strayed further from the light than those above. In circle 6, they discover the Greek materialist Epicurus, who proposed a world without meaning, where the soul was extinguished with the body, where the afterlife did not exist. Foundational ideas that led directly to the creation of scientific materialism, to a mechanistic model of humanity, to the separation of God and nature, body and mind, even to the splitting of the atom, arrogance, one might say, by which our world has been led astray. It may well be, of course, that neither Epicurus nor even Dante could have imagined where these ideas might lead. But in Dante's Inferno, Epicurus and his fellow materialists are forever imprisoned in red-hot tombs. Downward now to the seventh circle, to the 3 rings of violence. Violence against neighbours, against self, and against God and nature. And straight away they encounter the infamous and tragic Minotaur from Greek mythology, who guards this next realm, and he charges at them, but the 2 somehow manage to escape. The first ring houses the souls of murderers, war makers, plunderers and tyrants, who are immersed in the boiling waters of the Phlegethon, a river of thick blood and fire, and centaurs, commanded by Chiron, patrol its shores, and they fire arrows at any who try to climb free. Well, next they come down to those who have killed themselves, and for their sins they have been transformed into gnarled old trees. Humankind is not separate from nature, suggests Paul Krauss in his essay on the Inferno, and the suicide of man has consequences for the rest of creation. Hence, all violence perpetrated against the self ripples out throughout creation in unforeseen and devastating ways. But does it? And is it really true that suicide is a sin of sorts? Later, in the Purgatorio, we will see Dante position the ancient Roman Stoic Cato as guardian of the mountain, a soul who killed himself rather than submit to the tyranny of a corrupt regime, and whose soul is now assured of salvation, like all the rest who make it to the shores of that island. So, what is Dante's view? How can he say one thing and then another? Questions are clearly raised for our own contemplation, and maybe this is Dante's intention. In the 3rd ring below, the poets meet those who have been violent toward God and toward nature. Part of the fall in the Christian tradition, writes Krauss, is man's estrangement and separation from creation. When man takes a domineering and destructive attitude to nature, he is led away from God, from the sacred. Krauss cites St. Paul. Creation groans for its restoration, he says. And this implies that nature will be re-sanctified only when humankind restores its stewarding relation to the creative world, when we remember, we might add, what indigenous peoples have never forgotten. What we do to the web, we do to ourselves. With much food for thought, then, our poets pass on as they must, and very soon they hear the sounds of the waterfall that plunges over the great cliff into the 8th circle of the fraudulent below.